We're gonna be doing a mud motor review, but I gotta tell you, this one's not for everyone. You have to meet some certain specifications in order to own one of these. And the most important one is you're gonna have to drive it somewhere where you can get stuck on a mud flat with perfectly good, deep enough water to drive like a normal human being directly next to it. Woo! It's time to send it. Send it. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Gator Tail. This is a 2024 model GTR XD. It has the 40 horse Vanguard EFI on it. No other modifications other than this really cute little rooster light that I may or may not have been involved in installing. And that lights up everything back behind the boat in the duckwood. So that it's kind of like a gay Batman symbol. It just throws up light everywhere so they know that there's a havoc on her coming down the river. Aside from that and the hammer prop, everything on this is stock. It's not a paid review. And GatorTail did not send me this for free, even though I wish they would have. So what you're about to see is 100% my opinion and my opinion only, because I didn't buy this thing, so I don't really care about making anybody happy with what I'm fixing to say. Now, the super fancy John boat that this Gator Tail is installed on is a 2024 model Havoc MSTC. It's a 1756, and it's one of the last models that they didn't have to put foam in. Let's cover some specs and comparisons before I get out here and drive this mud motor like I have extra lives and a spare boat in the garage. I want to cover this especially for people that are new to mud motors or thinking about buying a mud motor for the first time, because there's not a ton of information for new people out there, and they're not sure of whether a surface drive or what I call a short tail mud motor is going to be right for them or not. So you get several different varieties of surface drive or short tail style mud motors. You have some that just have forward only, kind of like a long tail does, where there's no transmission, no gearing, no nothing. It's just it only goes forward, and in order to stop, push down on the prop to get the prop out of the water. You got some that have forward and neutral, where there's a clutch built into it, so where if you let off the gas, you don't have to pick the prop up out of the water. And then you have models like we're reviewing today, which is an FNR, forward, neutral, reverse. All of the ones out on the market now have an electronic style of engaging the transmission to go forward. You either push a button or flip a switch to get it back into neutral. And then you also have a way to put it in reverse. And then you have some models like the Pro Drive that actually spin the entire lower unit around to give you a full power reverse. That is completely unlike what we're going to be going over today, so I'll save that one for another video, because the Pro Drive is kind of in a class all on its own. The surface drive mud motors that are in the same kind of classification as this Gator Tail is going to be your Mud Buddy 40 EFI and also the Go Devil 40 horsepower. They call it the FNR electronic trim version. Now, looking at the price comparison side by side, Mud Buddy's coming in at $10,149 according to their website. I'm not sure if that price is lower or higher depending on if you go through a dealer or not. On the Go Devil website, their 40 horsepower comes in at $11,250, and this Gator Tail 40 horsepower EFI comes in at $9,917.25. And when you look at the price spread between the three, it's pretty obvious why the Gator Tail is probably the most popular out of all of them. The Mud Buddy does come in very close. You're only talking about a couple of $100 difference compared to the Go Devil, which is over $1,000 more. Now, if you're new, you're probably not used to this, but you will quickly learn that the mud motor world, specifically when it comes to surface drives, is worse than car guys. You've got your Chevy guys, your Dodge guys, your Pontiac people, you got your Ford people. It's the exact same in the mud motor world. You got your rah-rah team Gator Tail people. You got some huge fans of the Mud Buddy. The one that you don't hear a whole lot about is the Go Devil. They're kind of like a cult following. So you just kind of have to take what everybody says with a grain of salt when it comes to mud motors, especially surface drives, because the one that they own is the one that they are going to be the most vocal about. Unless they had one break on them, then you're going to hear nothing but negative stuff. So take reviews that you see online with a grain of salt. Hey, even though it's the cheapest out of the three, the Gator Tail does get a lot of love from people for all of its features and things that it has. All of these mud motors have the exact same engine. It's the 40 horsepower EFI Vanguard. That's 993 cc's. That is the big block. They all have the high rev coil, so they'll rev up to 4,750 RPMs, which is a lot more than the traditional long tails that I'm used to running, that are more of your pressure washer style motors that are governed at like 3,700 RPM. And one thing I will praise Gator Tail for is the amount of aluminum that they use in building these mud motors. There's not a lot of steel parts on them, so there's a lot less stuff you have to worry about rusting. And overall, the maintenance on them is not too bad. Not only does Gator Tail have a website and YouTube channel that shows you how to do the maintenance and, you know, basic repairs and stuff on their mud motor, they also highly encourage people to do it themselves. It makes me feel all warm and fuzzy inside, because I know this company built this thing to where I can work on it and your average Joe can work on it. They want it to be user serviceable, so you don't have to go down to a local boat shop and spend a bunch of money getting labor and stuff done on basic repairs. Speaking of repairs, I don't see a whole lot of people complaining about having to repair these things, but the ones that I do, and the ones I've had personal experience with people bringing them into our shop, is because people use these things in the same manner that you would a tank. They will run over stuff, they will jump beaver dams, they will drag it across the parking lot, they will do anything that they want to because they believe that this motor is bulletproof. And while it can handle a lot of abuse, it's not a tank, and it's definitely not bulletproof. Just in my experience from talking to people that own these and some of the Facebook groups, some of the forums and stuff that I've seen, the two most common repair items I see for the Gator Tails is going to be the trim switch and the clutch. These clutches are designed to last for a long time. They're good electronic clutches, but they're not bulletproof. They're not going to last forever. And when you mass manufacture clutches like that, there's no guarantee that every single one of them is going to be awesome. I don't see a ton of bad stuff talked about their clutches, but I do every now and then see people complain about clutch went out faster than they think it should have. Luckily, there's plenty of YouTube videos to show you how to replace a clutch, and that's just something that you need to learn how to do if you're going to own a surface drive. Because at some point, you're going to burn the clutch out. It's a wear item. Now, the electronic trim switch situation has mostly been narrowed down to corrosion issues. The pins on the backside of the switch can get corrosion on them and cause the switch to overheat because it's something that you use a lot when you're actually out running the motor, and I'll talk about that here in a little bit. But poor connections on the back of the trim switch can cause it to overheat and malfunction or burn the switch out. And luckily, GatorTail recognizes that people have had issues with it. They put out a video on their YouTube channel showing you how to replace it. It's very simple, and they have them available on their website for a replacement if needed. And they even say in their YouTube video, you need to make sure that these things clean and replace the spade connectors on it to make sure you've got fresh, clean connections so that don't get corroded. And they do make a couple of different versions of this exact same motor. They have a tiller steer version, which is what we're going to be reviewing today. And they also have a remote steer version that you can use on like a console with a steering wheel or a steering cable if you want to go that route. It is more expensive, but it's an option if that's something that you're looking into. They also make two different height versions of this for different size transoms. They make a tall version, which goes on a 21 or taller inch transom, which is probably the most popular. And if you find a used Gator Tail out there anywhere on the market, it's more than likely going to be a tall transom. That's the way that most of the mud boats and duck boats are built these days, with a hunt deck on the back and a 21, 22 inch transom. They also make a short transom version for smaller John boats and things like that, but they're definitely not as common. So what's it like driving a Gator Tail surface drive? I gotta admit, it's pretty freaking awesome. Now, it does take a little getting used to. It's somewhat similar to driving an outboard, as in when you're getting on plane, you need to trim the motor down as far as it'll go, get the boat up to speed, and then slowly start raising the trim level up until you get that prop halfway out of the water and you feel like it's riding well. And I wish there was a great way to explain it, but you'll feel it and you'll hear it. The motor will just sound happy at wide open throttle when you have it in the correct trim position, and also when the weight is distributed on the boat correctly. I did find out when we had two people on the boat that it got on plane and rode a lot better with one person in the front of the boat and one person in the back driving. Now, a lot of that has to do with the actual boat design, so every boat's going to be different. In this particular Havoc, that's the way that it liked to ride the best. Now, while you are running, if you come up into really shallow areas or places where there's really no water at all, it's just wet grass or wet mud, you do have to play around with the trim some. And either go down a little bit or up a little bit. I found that when we were going through the grass, it really didn't matter a whole lot. But when we got into areas that were a little bit more mud than water, I did find that you needed to trim down just slightly, just a little bump or two on the trim switch to get it some better grip and keep it up on plane. Now, one important takeaway and something that you need to know is that while these are called mud motors and they are designed to go through mud, crawling out of mud is not something that it does particularly well. You only have so much area behind the boat that the prop can reach to grab what we consider soft mud or something that's wet enough for it to get some propulsion and thrust and move you across the mud or the thick or whatever it is that you're in comparison to a longtail that has 85 to 100 inches of shaft out behind the boat. You had a lot more options for places to put that prop to give you something to bite to so that you can push the boat forward. Now, Ricky Bobby would have been super proud of the way that I drove this boat. I gave it the full send. If you decide to get one of these and you see an area that's really, really shallow, muddy, or has a lot of vegetation, you need to pretend like you are going mud bogging in a Honda Civic. It's all about velocity. You want to get up on plane and keep it on plane at all costs. And that's something that took me a lot of getting used to, because with my long tail mud motors, I'm used to being able to stop in the middle of whatever I'm stuck in, and I can either put the prop in an area that has enough water or something soft so where I can get some grip on it and move the boat forward, or I can use the long tail as like basically a pole vault. I can stick it over wherever I need to and use it as a push pole to get me out of wherever I'm stuck. With this Gator Tail, especially on this little Havoc boat, it's all about velocity. Just keep it moving and keep it moving as fast as you possibly can. Now, I'm in central Georgia, so we don't have a whole lot of big mud flats that I could go run around on and get stuck like some of these idiots that you see on YouTube and Facebook and Instagram and TikTok all over the place, where they're stuck in the middle of a mud flat and 7 feet away there's a river that's 25 foot deep that they could have went through just perfectly fine. While I understand it's a mud motor, it's supposed to be able to go through mud, if you don't do it fast enough and skate across the mud, you may not make it out. One other thing that I learned very quickly about the Gator Tail, and this is not just for Gator Tails, this is all surface drive because I've driven quite a few of them, but you need to be very wary of where that tiller handle is in relationship to your body when you're going through sketchy stuff. The motor has a lot of power and that prop has a lot of grab. And if you hit a stump or something really hard and that motor pops up or rocks to the side and your body is in the way, that mud motor does not care. If you are not careful and that motor hits something and you are in the way of that tiller handle, you are going to look like a domestic violence victim with all the bruises that you've got all over your body. Now, driving this thing, I tried it both ways, standing up and sitting down. I have always been a standing up style person. I don't sit down when I pee. I don't sit down when I drive a mud motor. I tried it on this particular go around and I will say it was quite comfortable. It was a lot like driving an outboard. I did have a few instances where I hit stuff and that tiller wanted to come right back at me, which is why I do not like sitting right next to it. But standing up, I didn't really have any problems. I thought it was great standing up. I feel like I have more field of view, but I know a lot of people, that's one of the big reasons that they go to a surface drive is because it drives more like an outboard and you can sit down and be comfortable for long rides. So here's my really one and only complaint about the Gator Tail, and this is not just a Gator Tail specific issue. This is with almost every surface drive I've ever seen. They want you to drive it wrong-handed, and I'm not wrong-handed. I'm right-handed, and I understand that it's probably a pain in the butt to manufacture these things on both sides, but for people like me who like to drive right-handed, I really want the option to be able to do both, to be able to flip this thing around or have some type of mechanism to where I can unbolt this, move this stuff around to the other side so that I can sit this side over here and drive with my right hand. With the way this thing is designed, I mean, you can do it, but you're going to be operating the throttle with your thumb, and you have to look over the side in order to get to your forward, neutral, reverse, and your trim switch. So, should you spend your hard-earned $9,917.25 on a Gator Tail 40XD? Yeah, they're pretty awesome. If I had that kind of money laying around, I would totally buy one. It took a little bit of getting used to, but it was super easy to drive. It was a lot of fun. They seem to be very rugged and well made. The company stands behind their product, and everybody I've talked to that has one seems to be really happy with them. If you're asking me on a rating scale 1 to lava lamp, I would totally give this a solid 5 cheeseburgers. I would 100% recommend the Gator Tail. If you're not familiar with the Haters Corner, what we like to do at the end of every video is stand in a corner and see who was the most butthurt in the comments over the last couple videos. And there's a lot of sensitive people on the internet, so we can't use their real names when I talk about them. We just call them Scooter. Our first Scooter left a comment and said, "Good video, ding dong. Love Scooter." I don't know which particular Scooter it was that started the ding dong trend, but that seems to be like a thing. Everybody keeps calling me ding dong for some reason, which I don't find offensive in the least bit, because ding dongs, if you don't know, is not just a mean name to call someone. They're also one of the most magically delicious treats on the entire planet. And me being a ding dong, I'm also a magically delicious treat, or at least your mom thinks I am. Now, I know a lot of jokes, and I have a lot of jokes in the old memory bank, but one that I do not have is one about ding-dongs. So I went on the internet and tried to find some ding-dong jokes, and I really didn't find any. But I did somehow wind up on a Google image search about ding-dong. And did you know that Hostess, the company that makes ding-dongs, for Valentine's Day one year, put out a 3-foot-long Valentine's Day special ding-dong box? Because nothing says I love you, happy Valentine's Day like a 3-foot ding-dong. Our next Scooter left a comment on the video where I was doing the overview of building my boat. Scooter wrote, "Naming off all the hatches started off normal, then it got personal." I'm trying to remember, what exactly did I say? Let's go back and look.
I also really like having only 2 hatches in this boat instead of 96 like a bass boat does. I don't need a day hatch and a shallow stow hatch and a deep stow hatch and a lunchbox hatch and a cooler hatch and a hatch for my man purse, a hatch for my tampons, a hatch for my Starbucks coffee, a hatch for my chapstick, and then another hatch that's hidden inside of one of the other hatches to hide my pink trick worms. I've just got 2 giant hatches.
Okay, I'll admit, yeah, it was a little bit personal, and that's only because I really don't like bass boat people. Especially people that are trying to build their own bass boat out of something that's not a bass boat. And a lot of that is because we're at work. You know, where we build boats, we get a lot of people that come in here with like a little 10-foot boat and want to put 97 hatches in it. It drives me absolutely insane. And I try to talk people into just like, instead of spending all this money on just a little bitty boat, why don't you just go buy a bass boat? But I'm a terrible salesman. And some customers will ask me, like, what's it like to have a bass boat versus a small boat? And the best way I can describe it is, if you've ever been on the toilet taking a dump and you get an erection and you grab it and start pretending like you're a fighter jet pilot, that's what it feels like to drive a bass boat. Which is exactly why I don't own a bass boat, because I'm not that cool. Our next scooter left a comment and said, just annoying. Nobody said you had to watch the video, Scooter, and let's just be 100% clear on one thing. I don't want you to watch my video, Scooter, but having Scooter watch my video is an unfortunate necessity, like tipping a waiter after a meal or colonoscopy. Nobody wants it, but it has to happen. If I didn't have people talk crap about me in my videos, then I wouldn't have anything to talk about at the end of the video when we do the Scooter Corner. So with that, Scooter, I hope you choke on your spit while you sleep. Our next Scooter left a comment and said, I didn't know we were having a butt hurt contest. I hurt. This must be racist, misogynistic, and homophobic. Did I miss anything? I'm not sure how, but I know it is. Yeah, Scooter, you missed a few things. You missed transphobic, non-binary phobic, and phobias against people that like to identify as potato. I don't really know what to say about this comment. It didn't make a whole lot of sense about anything, and it had nothing to do with the video. I can only assume that this scooter voted for Kamala or they drive a squatted pickup truck. But I will admit, I am just a teensy bit jealous because I know that this scooter can eat all the ice cream that he wants as fast as he wants, never have to worry about getting a brain freeze.